Hey everybody, welcome back. In this video I thought I'd do something a little bit different, which is to tackle a Your Art Here challenge. This particular challenge is by Johnny Dombrowski, and I'll put a link to his Instagram in the description that follows this video. So the way I approach this is by using Photoshop and turning on the vertical symmetry tool. And I'm going to create a layer above Johnny's drawing here. And I'll first pencil it in, and then I'll go back over with inks. And I think these challenges are really fun because it allows you to get into the headspace of another artist and maybe explore a style that's different from your own. So, you know, as I start to conceptualize and think about how to draw this creature, I'm looking at the base volumetric shapes that are used to go ahead and make this creature. And I'm just fleshing things in, you know, a bit at a time. And I'm starting out with, first of all, just working with the volumetric shapes and, you know, looking at the overall structure. And I'm not really focused too much on details at this phase. This video is being recorded in real time. In other words, I've already drawn this, but I've not sped up the video. I'm just drawing it the way I would if you were to watch me. You don't have to use the symmetry tool for this, but you know, my goal with this particular sketch was to try to create something that would look very similar to what Johnny had and just make a few little tweaks and modifications. If you follow the hashtag on Instagram for this particular challenge, you'll see a lot of really incredible versions, some of which just, you know, take it to the nth level. So do check out the hashtag, and I'll put that in the description as well. Here I'm basically formalizing some of my lines. And now I'm going to drop the opacity of my pencil layer and make a new layer for my inks. The inking tool that I use is a custom scratchboard tool that I developed. I have a video on my channel that discusses how to make your own custom brushes. Definitely check that out. I'm not saying that you can't buy brushes from other artists. I definitely would encourage you to do that, and I've certainly bought my fair share from artists over the years. But I think there's a certain level of satisfaction in being able to dial in your own specific brushes that work exactly the way you want them to work. Now, the symmetry tool is still on in this case, so you probably will see some of my inks spill over to the other side. I'm not even really looking at that. Here we have some overlap forms. Overlap is a really important concept to provide depth to your drawing. I think part of the fun of doing these exercises is you're not making an exact copy, although you could do that, but the idea is to sprinkle some of your own sensibilities while retaining the characteristics of the original drawing. So, you know, if we carefully look at Johnny's drawing here, you'll see that he's, you know, added some, you know, halftone effects and, you know, used a paper texture to kind of simulate this idea of something that looks vintage or retro. And that's actually an aesthetic that I really like. It's like that old school comic book printing technique. As I work, I think about line weight. I think about variance between thick and thin lines. I've talked about how to set that up in previous videos. Here I'm adding some hatching. Now I'm going to work on, I guess, the tendrils that are on this creature. There are many artists that have these types of art challenges that are on Instagram. I know that Beast Rec has done a few, and I'll also put a link to his Instagram so you can check it out. And this is also another great exercise to practice if you don't know what to draw, or if you're feeling that you have art block. I did this one this morning because I knew that I wouldn't have as much time to work on anything new during the day. So I just use this as my warm-up sketch. So here I'm actually starting to fill in values, and I'm trying to close gaps. I'm kind of inking in a dark green. I will eventually adjust the color, make it black. Here I'm using the elliptical marquee tool just to make some of those openings that are in the eye. One of the things that I've extracted from this particular drawing is Johnny's use of his hatching, and he does a phenomenal job of really making his objects have some nice structure and form. Here I'm now varying a little bit from the initial sketch. I'm adding a few extra details, adding some drool, adding some extra teeth. Just to kind of give it some more flair. As I approach something like this, I'm not really thinking about what the end result's going to be. I'm just playing. I want to establish the basic structure that's represented on the left side, but I also want to be able to add something new or something different, just something that makes it seem like it's got some uniqueness to it. Normally I would speed up this inking process. Let me know in the comments below what you think of these real-time activities and exercises. Do you prefer seeing something like this, or do you like to see stuff sped up? I'm just not sure what people prefer. So here I'm getting rid of my original line art that's on the left. I'm turning off the symmetry tool. Going back in and adding some drool, because bugs and drool, why not? I've always got my hand on the undo when I'm drawing digitally. And that's okay. No judgment. This is a judgment-free zone. I think texture is a very important element when you're inking, thinking about the material that an object is made up of. I'm adding little bumps and other little knickknacks to give this bug, you know, a sense of like it's got some kind of material associated with its skin. I love adding little dots. Don't know why, but just like doing it. So here I'm turning the line art to black. And now I'm creating a new layer underneath. I'm using the True Grit Texture Supply halftone textures. I use this quite a bit. I just like that aesthetic. And I'm using the Magic Wand tool with a tolerance of 68. And depending upon how things look here, I have to go back in and close some of the gaps so that I can properly fill in the halftone texture. So here I'm zooming in, kind of moving around. I'm on the hunt for gaps. This is probably the thing that I do the most when I work. For some reason, the gaps that I create are so tiny that you almost have to go in with a magnifying glass, or you have to zoom in quite a bit to see what you're working on. So here I'm holding down the shift key, adding to my selection, filling in the blue. It's not the same shade of blue, but I will go back and I will adjust that shade to better closely match the other side. Again, I'm using the hue saturation hue slider to do this. There's a few gaps, so I have to go back and make some adjustments. I didn't totally select everything on the skin. So I've merged all the colors onto one layer. And now I'm going back in and I'm adding another layer above my color layer where I can fill in white. And I'm going to add some highlights to better mimic what's on the opposite side. What are some of your biggest challenges when you're working on projects? Do you have any suggestions or ideas for me with regards to something you'd like to see me demo? Please let me know in the comments below. I will take all considerations. And so now I've added a yellow background, and I'm going to look for a paper texture. And I'm going to replicate that paper texture. It's not going to be exactly, it's going to be a different paper texture. Oh, and before that I'm just adding the drool. I'm using a color lock to change the black outline for the drool to make that more of a grayish value, just so that it's not going to be as prominent. Kind of looks more like water that way. So I'm painting with gray. just to lighten that up a little bit to make it look more like water or saliva or whatever. And now I'm going to add my paper texture. I use a program on the Mac called Graphic Converter. It does a good job of allowing me to look through all of my digital assets. And there we go, paper texture. You can find loads of high resolution free textures on the internet. And if you set a paper texture to multiply, it kind of gives you that old school, you know, newsprint type look. So here I'm just dialing in the value using my sliders on the hue, saturation, and lightness to kind of closely adjust my values to kind of mimic what I'm seeing on the left side. And now I want to change the entire color. Here what I'm doing is just trying to better match the color by using that multiply layer and just being very selective, trying different layer styles. Sometimes you end up with some really cool accidental discoveries. So here I'm just trying different things out. And I ended up getting the divide. It seemed like it was a pretty close fit. And then lastly, if you look at the tendrils, I want to add another layer above everything where I can just sample that white and just literally paint the white highlights in. Hopefully the audio is better on this video. Please let me know if it's improved or not. And so here's the final reveal. On the left was the reference that was provided by Johnny. On the right is my take. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.